And joining me now on this is the Premier of Saskatchewan, Scott Moe. Premier, good to see you.
Good to see you, Andrew.
Now, I do want to start on the Canada-US question because we have the Prime Minister saying he doesn't have a burning issue to speak about with the President right now, that they'll speak again when it matters. Do you agree with that mindset?
Well, obviously, we'd like to get to, a point of agreement sooner rather than later, not only with the U.S., but, somewhat indirectly China, as well as we now see tariffs in India. And those are our three largest markets from our province's perspective, and I think, in fairness, from Canada's perspective as well. And so our role has been to support the Prime Minister and the federal government in any way that we can in order for us as a nation to get to those negotiating tables sooner rather than later. The fact that negotiations broke off a couple of weeks ago is disappointing. We hope to get back as soon as we can, but there's also a time when it's appropriate to get back. I hope that's soon, but I support the Prime Minister and the strategy that he's taking to that table on Canada's behalf. We need him to be successful, not only from Saskatchewan's perspective, but from each of us as Canadians' perspective as well. We need to come together, as a team, as Team Canada, in finding our way what is pretty challenging time the last bit here.
Now, you were in Washington recently on a trade mission, meeting members of the Trump cabinet. There is talk of the Prime Minister potentially going there. Does the Prime Minister need to go back to D.C.?
Sure. and they're our largest trading partner. And, we would encourage the Prime Minister and members of his cabinet to be in Washington more than certainly we have been over the last decade. And I am seeing a commitment from this Prime Minister to really increase Canada's credibility in the international stage, and that includes in Washington, D.C. So we would hope that he would be there sooner rather than later, and we'd hope that Minister LeBlanc would be able to return to the negotiating table as well sooner rather than later. And I think in our meetings in Washington, there's an understanding that we are going to have to, work together to find a path forward. There's probably still some sensitive conversations to be had on certain industries. So.
All right, let's turn to energy and pipelines, because last week you said you were involved in talks between Alberta and the federal government. Can you clarify just what exactly Saskatchewan's role has been in these talks as they've been ongoing?
Yeah, we wouldn't be, a direct signatory or anything to any type of an agreement that might come forward. However, we very much are supportive of Premier Smith's moves to become the proponent for this project and start to bring the conversation forward. And two, on behalf of Prime Minister Carney, we commend him for being open to having discussions around, some unconsulted policies that came into place under his predecessor that simply are unworkable and are hindering us achieving his aspiration of not only becoming a global energy superpower, but obtaining or getting to a point where we'd have the strongest economy in the G7. In order for that to happen, we need to be, as provincial premiers and as a federal government, supportive of each and every project in each and every industry in each and every province. And we certainly are supportive of all the projects that we see that may be constructed here, whether they be in British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, or any other province across the nation. And I think that is what it truly means to be on Team Canada, is for us to support all of the projects, regardless of where they are in the industry they're within.
Okay, so just to clarify then, did the Saskatchewan government have a tangible seat at the table in these talks, or was it more of a support role?
So there is no secret talks. There's a decision that the federal government will be making, likely under the guidance of Alberta with respect to what needs to change, and I would say to some degree Saskatchewan as well, as the guidance that we provided as it pertains to the energy industry likely aligns very closely with what Premier Smith has been discussing with Prime Minister Carney. And so, like I say, we wouldn't be any direct signatory to this particular project, but we're highly supportive of it for multiple reasons. One, it's going to bring a higher price per barrel of oil to every barrel of oil in Canada, including the ones in Saskatchewan. Two, opens up some additional capacity for us to send our product in Saskatchewan south, which is a positive. We can expand our industry here. And three, it really would help with some of the capacity on the West Coast, some of the efficiencies in a Northwest Coast port, where we might be able to have realistic discussions about, for example, expanding or twinning the rail line to Prince Rupert, which would allow us then to attract investments and send more products to that port as well. We see, very recently, Canada's largest mining company that is saying that it's a pretty challenging environment for them to consider investing in port infrastructure on Canada's west coast, and are looking, quite likely to the United States of America. That should cause us pause as Canadians, that we need to be more welcoming and providing more certainty with respect to those types of investments on our west coast.
Okay, you mentioned the West Coast and Prince Rupert. I do want to ask you about the BC Premier in the time we have left with you, because David Eby said he learned about these talks through the media. He says that was unacceptable. Do you understand the frustration he has about how this process has played out?
Certainly. When Bill C-69, or the Environmental Impact Assessment, was introduced, Saskatchewan and Alberta were not consulted. When the tanker ban was introduced, Saskatchewan and Alberta were not consulted. When the emissions cap was introduced, Saskatchewan and Alberta were not consulted. Consultation didn't happen in any of those cases, and it had a huge impact, each of those policies, on how we create wealth in our respective provinces. That being said, when it comes to interprovincial pipelines, we all know very well, and I'm sure the NDP Premier in British Columbia knows very well, that this is a federal government's decision. However, there's a lot of work to come between now and when that decision might be made, with respect to engagement of all of the communities, community leaders, and Indigenous and otherwise along that route. And there is, if we truly are going to be serious in looking for a private proponent to come forward, there are some of those unconsulted laws, like the emissions cap, that are going to have to change. And I think that is very much the discussion that Saskatchewan has brought forward, and I see that discussion being brought forward by Premier Smith as well. Again, I would say we're supportive of all of that happening. We're also supportive of the LNG projects in British Columbia as well. We're supportive of expanding TMX, and having conversations around how we can not KXL anymore, but how we can have increased access to the United States of America through that type of infrastructure as well. This is not an either-or conversation, as the NDP Premier in British Columbia is framing it. This is an all-of-the-above conversation, and we need to have these discussions if we're going to truly achieve some of the aspirations that the Prime Minister has. All
right, Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe, appreciate your time as always.
Thank you very much, Andrew.